best coaching job for Coach Heupel moving forward because of it.
Yeah, if you're Heupel, you could kind of like put it any way you want. You could maybe get the most out of the transfer quarterback. You could maybe get the most out of the quote unquote what was going to be the backup, or the incoming guy, the newest guy, in terms of a 5-star at that. Because nowadays we're seeing college football, how crazy it is. And if you're a 5-star quarterback, in some places, you are starting right away. You are starting, that first year. With his situation, it was rare because you had Nico Iamaleava still, at least for one more year. So George was expected to be, sitting there on the bench if he needed to come in at some point. But I think now you're looking at it as, hey, throw him into the competition because he has the talent. Like you said, Ramon, he does need to put on some of that weight, which he could eventually do. But I love the quarterback competition. I've been saying that for a second, like in terms of that room now, that it's shooken up a little bit more. That's going to be really good. And we don't know the outcome yet. Flip of the coin, I feel like, for some situations in that room.
I'd say it's a little more likely to flip of the coin that Joey Aguilar starts week 1. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, who knows? But I think Joey Aguilar certainly is in lane 1.
Oh, yeah.
Running on the inside track. But my takeaway from what Austin told us is don't discount the other 2.
Yeah. Sure.
I think a lot of people are making this a 2-way competition. I think there is maybe an outside shot that George McIntyre can be in the mix of that. So we'll see.
Yeah, because of injuries and everything else that jumps into place, right? Like, this is it's a good place to be. Like I said, I felt that Saturday calling that game in Knoxville, like you felt like the team had gotten close. Now you knew it was going to be some ones that jumped into the portal.
Right.
And just because you got to chase the quarterback and just the outlook of what the season could look like. But here's what you do know is they have more talent, I feel like, at wide receiver. They don't have the bodies that they still need, but the talent, I feel like, is elevated at this point. The tight ends also are a little bit better at this point. You can settle in your starters, and it became a little bit more clear, right, with you knowing that David Sanders Jr. is probably going to be there. You can get over those hurdles, man. You put yourself in a better spot. Again, I always charge the coaches in these moments. What are you doing to help your team out in these moments? Are you making it a little bit more friendly for a guy like Aguilar, Merklinger, or George McIntyre, too? Then also, how do you cover up the offensive line? Like, there's, 2 guys I think that's jumped in, Aiden Brussel and also Larry Johnson. Like, as it stands, boy, I can't wait till this portal close. Is it midnight tonight, I hope?
That's the basketball portal, I think.
No, it's the 25th.
Is it all of okay?
Oh, God dang. Never mind. That's Thursday, I think. Is when it closed.
I think basketball tonight and then Friday, yeah. So
close this thing down.
The spring portal closes on Friday for college football. Not every sport is the same. So
I can't keep track of all of it. It's wild. Like, there's a date for everything.
It's dumb in general.
Thank you to the AI overview view at google.com for getting us an answer.
And our stream is back. Booyah.
I was getting there. 1045 The Zone TV, back up and running. You get 25% of Ramon, Caleb, Will. Thankfully, you get all of every other show in the Zone. But you get a quarter of ours. So
here we are.
Mornings.
We're here.
Mornings.
Yep.
Mornings. Either way. I do love the mornings. Either way, though, Heupel's got a great test that he needs to pass with flying colors. Despite whatever Nico does on the West Coast, I'd much rather not have that discussion no more.
What discussion?
Nico.
I don't know. It's. I think it's going to be an ongoing one all season.
Because me, naturally, I'm going to be praying on his downfall. Or not his, UCLA's. I don't want to see him do good. I'll be completely honest with you. That's me just being me. I can be blatantly honest about that.
Tennessee fans will take their victory lap if he throws 3 picks against Penn State or Northwestern.
Or Ohio State.
He goes to Columbus again this year. So.
Not the easiest.
Make sure to have a backup helmet ready.
Hey, I wish him luck. It is what it is.
Coming up, Mike Golic Jr. joins us talking NFL draft next. RKW 104.5, The Zone is brewed by Scooters Coffee, Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, and Will Bowling. And we are now streaming live on 104.5 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. And on the 104.5 The Zone YouTube channel as well, Robert Walsh interviewing animals at the Nashville Zoo about the NFL draft.
Oh my goodness!
Crazy.
It's pretty electric.
I'll retweet. Has it out yet?
Yeah,
That's what I just said. Yeah,
he posted some.
He said he might. Okay,
some goats. Sure did, man.
Okay,
it's pretty good.
It would be fitting for this music to be playing right now. Absolutely, like.
This is great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Got anything to tell us about what's in your coffee mug?
What's that?
Why is it fitting for this music to be playing?
There's so
It's
much
a little
drama.
early. There's so much drama in the LBC. Yes. That's exactly what we got going on right now. We might have a guy on the phone soon that can tell us about Long Beach, man, because he's out in California
Right.
himself. Golly, I didn't think about that. That's so very true. That should be our song. At least there's so much drama in the LBC. It's kind of hard being Nico Iamalaeava.
Iamaleava.
I'm just nodding and smiling. Just gonna nod and smile.
We can have another song.
Ping was in Madagascar. Just
Oh.
Smile and wave.
Yes.
wave.
Smile. That was one of my
I love
favorite
that
movies
movie.
growing up.
I love that
Was.
movie.
Was.
Growing up,
Still
yeah.
is.
I had a
Still
portable
is.
DVD player that we would take on trips, and I watched that on a lot of trips to Knoxville as a small child. We'll be joined by Mike Golic Jr. coming up in just a moment as we effort him, and we'll get his thoughts on Cam Ward. I was planning on getting his thoughts on potential Tennessee quarterback Steve Angeli this morning, and then Joey Aguilar decided to commit yesterday, so no longer a Tennessee target.
Right.
Maybe a Syracuse target, though. Steve Angeli now also expected to visit Tulane
Is he
Okay.
really?
as another option. So
Well, they
do
won't.
need a quarterback.
Never mind. I can't decide. I can't disclose my my information that I got about the reaction to Nico potentially going there. But it was,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
yeah, what it was. I mean, but think about the world as you in though. It's like it's Tulane where people should be clamoring to go to get their stats up right now. They're hosting guys too in this portal era. So
Not
this
a bad team either.
is who's
Like,
that?
Tulane.
Tulane? No, not as of late.
Yeah.
we are joined by our good friend Mike Golic Jr. here on the show this morning, football, food, and life connoisseur. Mike, what's up, man? How are you?
It's been a while. How you guys doing?
We're
What's
great. I was just saying, I was going to ask you about potential Tennessee quarterback target Steve Angeli, and then Tennessee goes and gets Joey Aguilar in a trade with UCLA for cash considerations and a prospect to be named later yesterday. So it's no longer as relevant of a question.
It would be incredible if we did start truly like one-for-oneing NFL concepts for college. Like I had a buddy the other day. I play in an EA college football dynasty league with some of my buddies' high school friends, naturally. And one guy had messed up something he was supposed to do, and in exchange withdrew his scholarship offer from a 5-star that we were both recruiting. So like essentially traded a draft pick to me, more or less. So I do wonder if we could get to that point where there's that gamesmanship where it's like, all right, hey, we're going to send you this quarterback, and in exchange, we're going to stop recruiting this high school player that we've both been recruiting here. Congratulations.
I love
Crazy.
it. It's great. Mike, it feels like everyone who's played college football has an opinion on this and why we got to this point of quarterbacks and families being able to transfer this much and guys like Nico overplaying their hand the way that they did. Just what did you make of this from the outside perspective of someone that maybe doesn't have the orange tinted glasses that Ramon and I wear often on the way this all shook out and where Tennessee kind of goes now with now Joey Aguilar and Nico Iamalaeava at UCLA?
Yeah, you know, I was, I guess, not surprised. We always knew we were going to eventually get to something resembling a holdout in college football. We had kind of heard of players going in and trying to maybe put their feet up on the table and get more money out of the team at certain junctures before, but it playing out publicly like this where you had a guy not showing up to practice was something that was a first for all of us. So we've seen it in the NFL, and I think with college, the growing pains surrounding all of this are just a little bit more painful because, you know, I always think about professional leagues that went through this in the early going, whether it was early CBAs where players had to strike at junctures to get major advancements made in their rights in these professional leagues. That was done at a time when a lot fewer people were watching the action. That was done at a time where those games were much earlier in their life cycle. College football is one of the most popular sports in the country, and now we're rearranging the way everyone involved goes about doing their business. So this was always going to be more well covered, probably a little bit more painful. And ultimately what it comes down to is what you just said, overplaying your hand. Everyone involved is going to learn a little bit more about where they stand relative to the mean than they might have known before, because now it's codified. Now we got dollars and cents assigned to it. And on one side for the player, that's all right, knowing when I have performed well enough to be able to go in and demand more money and successfully get it. And on the team side, it's going to be doing what Tennessee did and what other teams I think are doing more of, which is, hey, you got someone managing your salary cap. We know how much we want to spend on each position. And we know the guys that we're probably willing to stretch that a little bit more for. And when you're not one of those guys, we have to not only stand 10 toes down, but also either have in place now or get to work on the plan that's going to help us offset that loss if we do have to embrace that idea of leaving. And I think that might be the biggest takeaway. Now it's real for everybody involved. Now it's real for other teams if they haven't experienced this themselves. And so especially at a position like quarterback, you've got to have contingency plans ready for if things go sideways on this position, because this late in the game and this late in the season right now, as we're getting ready to start, the summer training and all that stuff, it's a lot to handle still for your program if you're not prepared.
Mike Golic Jr., our guest. Mike, how chaotic of a college football season are we in for this year? Because there's so many contenders, including your alma mater in Notre Dame, close to winning a national title last year, with major question marks at quarterback. And it's Julian Saint at Ohio State. It's C.J. Carr at Notre Dame. It's Gunnar Stockton at Georgia. Like, can we live in a world where there is no elite team? There is no super team like Ohio State in 2025 in college football? And how chaotic maybe of a fall are we in for this time around with holdouts and things like this happening everywhere?
Yeah, well, and I think we all would be well remember, right? That version of Ohio State didn't show up until the playoffs.
Right.
Like, we didn't see it. So we had that kind of flattened curve last year around the sport. And I think at this point, that's here to stay somewhat because, like you mentioned, we've got so much movement and volatility every year. Yeah, the blue blood programs and the ones that have been able to spend the most in terms of NIL resources and continue to recruit at a high level are always going to have that advantage. But I'm with you. I don't right now, as we're really early and looking at these rosters, see a team that's set to dominate over everybody else the way we used to be able to point to and say, oh, well, this year's Clemson team or 2019 LSU or 2020 Alabama are these teams that from a mile away you could see were going to come in and smash everyone to bits. And I think in some ways, right, that it's been good for the sport. The last few years have been good for the sport. We had the stretch a few years ago where, you get Tennessee, that team coming out of nowhere for a little bit and getting up to number one in the country, like getting more people involved in that way and having more people feel like they have access to the top end of the sport is probably going to do us some good, even if we're losing out on, hey, that continuity that usually comes with having guys around the program for multiple years that you can count on, build around, and become household names.
A good friend, Mike Golic Jr., man, a greatest ice cream evaluator, Oreos connoisseur, Pop-Tart pimp, whatever you want to call it, man. Listen to me. All of these things, Mike, I got to break this up a little bit because you sound a little bit too professional for my liking, okay? Just had to real quick. In that same sense, though, in the state of college football, Mike, I'm looking at a report right now, man. This is from Grant Grubbs that posted this on On3. Currently standing, FanDuel has Joey Aguilar as a higher favorite for the Heisman than Nico Iamalaeava. Now, I bring it up to say this. It's because of the university and the fact that you are a West Coast guy, have been on the West Coast from time to time. What is UCLA, Mike, as a football program, man? I know they're in the Big Ten, but how would you describe them and their need for guys like the Iamaleava brothers?
Oh, yeah, in desperate need of that kind of publicity around here, right? Because, listen, if you're the UCL women's basketball team and you're coming off a great run this season and you were one of the better teams in the country, yeah, people know, but you guys know, I mean, it's a well-worn idea about Los Angeles that you've got to be truly great and exciting and have that star power if you're going to break through in this city as a sports team, because there's just too much going on out here. There's just too much to do. I mean, hell, Caleb Williams and USC had their moment, but even last year we saw Lincoln Riley in that standard slip, and all of a sudden it's not really as popping out here for those guys. And so I think Nico being a guy that's from out here, certainly, and Deshaun Foster being in year number 2 in this program, a guy who is of UCLA, who's trying to bring his alma mater back after Chip Kelly spurned them to go win that national championship with Ohio State. I think they're a program in transition right now, trying to find their footing. Like you said, it's new ground for them in a lot of ways right now. They're in the Big freaking Ten. It all still feels weird. And so if they were to go out here and get a hit and get proof of concept and say, hey, you know what, Nico, for all we've said about him not being the guy right now, the talent and the trajectory still offer that as an opportunity. If they hit, it would be massive for a program that I think right now is really trying to find its footing in the modern version of the game.
That's wild to say, man. And what a risk to take as a family. But here's also what we do know, man. You have the ability to create your own fortunes as football goes. But there's also roadblocks, Mike, on the road to success. With that being said, because you're closer to the scene out there, what has been the reaction of Oregon, UCLA, USC, Washington joining the Big Ten and the travel conversation, right? Because we can't minimize, Mike, that flight from east to west and west to east, it just sucks, okay? What has that conversation been, if it's been any? Because you got to consider that too.
Yeah, you know what? I think for a lot of people, fan level, it's been strange because remember, I think losing out on those regional rivalries is the byproduct of this. That's the end of the day going to be most corrosive to college football. Like, that's what the sport's built on right now. And so when it was funny for a while when I'd see, you know, USC, Oregon, UCLA hats when I'm walking on the Strand and think, oh, we're in Big Ten country. But at some point, that is like that weird transplant feeling you get a lot out here anyway. I think in the travel conversation, listen, especially for players, the one thing I've heard echoed by a lot of the coaching staffs at these schools and things of that nature is for football, hey, listen, we're traveling in charters. It's only once a week. We can overcome this even if it does add up a bit by the end of the season. The place that most of these programs are at now with sports science, sports nutrition, the way that they manage the bodies, it's so much different than even when I was playing in college 12, 13 years ago. But for the other sports, for the non-football sports, for basketball, for the sports that travel far more often and don't have the same resources, those are the ones that people worry more about, and rightly so, in how that's going to long-term affect the way that they're able to actually, you know, in those sports cases, balance the academic and athletic side in a way that's, you know, probably more realistic than the football side at this point.
College football analyst and our friend here, Mike Golic Jr. This is the time of year when college and the NFL collide with the NFL draft starting up on Thursday, Mike. I have to ask you, with being relevant here in Tennessee, it looks like Cam Ward is 100% the go here. What is your thoughts on maybe his journey and what prepares him for being a number one overall, you know, pick and potentially actually working for this organization?
Yeah, no, I think a couple of things here. You know, when I was coming out and going through my process back in the day, I had 4 offensive line coaches in 5 years, which isn't ideal when you're going through it. But on the back end, you realize, oh, I've been taught by 4 different people. I've had to learn 4 different versions of technique, of how someone wants to approach the game, of how we want to work together. And so that does prepare you for, all right, going to the next level, I'm going to have to do that again. And I'm going to have to do it in a hurry if I want to have an impact here. For Cam Ward, you look at his journey, well popularized, started at Incarnate Word, made his way to Washington State, and made his way to Miami, and had success at every spot. So that tells me this guy, in addition to all the ability, has a certain level of aptitude for football that's allowed him to make the transition successfully at every spot. And so if I'm Brian Callahan, I'm encouraged by that. I'm sure they've been encouraged by what they've seen talking to him behind closed doors when they got a chance to meet and visit with him. And so I'd say that's certainly one thing here. But then overall for him, just the creativity and the way that he approaches the game, you know, Brian's so good, and it was, you know, talked about a lot in Cincinnati, and building the offense around what the quarterback does best. And we saw that at Miami for him last year. Cam Ward at the height of his powers in a team that really went as he went. And so I think all of those things, having to make those transitions and being able to do so, having the team put everything on him and build the ship around him, and then go out and have that success. A program like Miami that when they got humming, when they were going early on in the season, is going to get talked about a lot, get a lot of that attention. And he seemed to be able to take all of that in stride, the Heisman conversation, everything that came with it. You want a guy that's battle-tested in those ways when you're getting ready to hand the reins over for the franchise to him very early on in the process. And so I think all of those things, as we saw, started to really separate him from the rest of the pack as we went along the process.
When you look beyond him in that quarterback class this year, and they're not getting as high as marks as years past in terms of quarterbacks, what is going on right now with the Shedeur fall? Do you believe that this is going to be a situation where he even falls potentially out of the first round? What has gone on in the last couple of months with Shedeur Sanders, who at the beginning, Mike, was right up there with Cam Ward?
Yeah, I think it gave us all a chance to kind of stop and take a breather and understand that Shedeur Sanders, listen, deserves a lot of respect for what he was able to do at 2 stops along his way in his college journey, helping 2 programs, really succeed at a higher level than they had been, along with his father coming in to jumpstart those. But as you look more and more, and what I think starts to happen more than it does even during the college season where, hey, for awards like the Heisman, we might be doing some compare and contrast. But when you really start to watch tape of these guys with an eye for the next level and you start to do it one after the other, so I can compare Cam Ward to Shedeur Sanders to Tyler Shuck to all these other quarterbacks that are coming out here, you start to see the differences show up on tape. And the thing that I think for a lot of people became the glaring issue with Shedeur is, listen, despite his lineage, he's not an overwhelmingly talented player physically. He's not someone that can go out there and move around and buy a ton of time and be a true dual threat. He's not a guy with massive arm strength or arm talent upside here. What he is an incredibly tough, smart player who can go out in adverse circumstances, not being well protected all the time, and still give his team a chance. And there's a ton of value there, but that's usually not what you take guys in the top 5 of the NFL draft for. And so I think that reality started to set in. I know a lot got made of, people talking about his personality, but I think that's all kind of secondary to what the tape said about Shedeur Sanders. I don't think he falls out of the first round. I still think he's going to end up being a first-round quarterback. I think there are some teams in the late first that would do well and that we've heard talked about, teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers that could obviously do well to get younger at that position. I know the Los Angeles Rams trying to figure out what they're going to do post Matthew Stafford might be in the market later in the first round. The Saints, now that the Derek Carr injury, might not even let Shedeur Sanders get out of the top 10 potentially. And so I think all of those factors are going to keep him as a first-round quarterback. But I think even though his personality and the Dion of it all was going to be the conversation that got him on talk shows, I think the tape is ultimately the reason why that we've seen the bit of the fall here postseason.
Mike, beyond the 2 top quarterbacks in Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, who are you betting on to make it? Because there are a lot of people that like Kyle McCord, there's a Riley Leonard hive, there's a Tyler Shuck hive, there's all of these different prospects that have some green flags and some red flags. Who out of that group of kind of the rest of everyone else are you betting on?
Yeah, Tyler Shuck's become the interesting one. I probably wouldn't take him in the first round. He's an older quarterback, as everyone's talked about. He's not a truly dynamic athlete. There's some plus as a runner for him, but I remember going back to when Louisville came to South Bend and played this last fall, and I had seen Tyler Shuck over the years. I mean, it's been talked about a lot with him. Hasn't finished a season outside of the one that he did this last year. Injury, the big part of a story of a guy that played 7 years of college football. But the bleep you in this guy's bag in terms of some of the throws he is willing to make, the touch and accuracy on the deep balls, there's a lot to like. Moves around the pocket well. And again, saying this for a guy that was in college for 7 years, but he's a mature guy. He's one of those guys that if he gets into one of those Shanahan, McVay quarterback rooms, you feel like could possibly have some success. So I think he's a guy pretty high floor because of the way he plays the game. The one that's the most fascinating to me, and I don't know where you guys are on him, especially having seen him up close and personal a lot more. And as a college football fan, analyst, I understand what I'm about to say is going to make a lot of people roll their eyes. What do we do with Jalen Milroe, man?
No clue.
Yep.
Like it feels like Joe Milton season all over again.
It does.
We're just like, have you seen him throw the orange?
Mm-hmm.
But every time I watch Jalen Milroe, there just aren't a lot of people that move like him. And I don't know if the future is at quarterback. I don't know if you do it like that just to get him in the building and see what happens. But, guys, that's such a special athlete that if a team takes a flyer on him even as high as the second round, I'm going to kind of be like, yeah, I get it, because there just aren't that many dudes like that.
It's crazy. That's a good point.
They calling him Lamar Jackson.
We could fill a lot of time with it that we are out of, but it is certainly a good point. Mike, on the way out real quick, our show is now proudly sponsored by Scooter's Coffee. There's a Lucky Charms latte on us for you the next time you're in Nashville to try it out. I know you are a connoisseur of these sorts of things. We got you covered the next time you're in the neighborhood.
My mouth just started watering. You guys know the way to my heart. Thanks, friends.
Thank you, Mike. Good to be with you as always. Mike. There's Mike Golic Jr. with us here today talking college football, NFL draft, and food, as always.
Love it.
I have a weekly culinary question every time we have it.
I know his page is so fun for that kind of
it's
stuff.
So elite.
It is great. Headlines on the way out. The Heisman odds for Joey Aguilar versus Nico Iamalaeava are kind of wild. We'll explain next. Wrapping up the show at RKW brewed by Scooter's Coffee with some news on a couple of different fronts. Let's start with Heisman odds. We teased that before the break. The Heisman odds for Joey Aguilar per FanDuel Sportsbook to win the Heisman, plus 4,500.
Yeah.
The odds for Nico Iamalaeava to win the Heisman per FanDuel Sportsbook, plus 8,000.
Wow.
Wow.
Double up.
Plus 8,000. Is this indication of him or his team? Which
Yes.
he
A little bit of
wanted?
everything, right?
He wanted a better schedule. I mean, a better supporting cast.
Maybe the offense wasn't the problem after all. Crazy concept.
Crazy concept.
Anyway.
If I could, I told you on break, if I could legally bet, I would put down 100 for the 4,000. Just because the sight unseen, the unknown aspect of it. We looked at the Heisman favorites last year, right? I mean, legitimately, you just never know how college football is going to shake out. Not saying that I'd win the 4,500, but I'd do it for the heck of it.
Tennessee shooting guard targets Rodney Rice has committed to USC.
Okay.
So the ship has sailed on Rodney Rice now officially. Tennessee will pivot to other targets. Austin Price making the point with us earlier this morning. They need shooting help. It's interesting. They have the exact opposite needs of what they did last year.
Yeah,
They had a lot of shooting. They had a lot of backcourt last year. This year they have a lot of front court, and they need a lot more shooting.
balance.
They are hosting an Oklahoma shooting guard transfer, reportedly, in Duke Miles, who is scheduled to visit with A&M on Monday and Tuesday. Tennessee tomorrow, USC Thursday, Friday, Baylor next week. So there you go.
Well, there it is.
Peter
wait to
Schrager of
see.
ESPN is saying this morning that the Browns and Giants are fielding calls for the numbers 2 and 3 pick.
I don't buy that at this point.
Why not?
Because
There's no one worth trading up for.
Yeah, what?
Giants in a position, they're in a predicament where they can take a quarterback or Abdul Carter, right? But they're also in a position where they got a lot of voids on that team, though, too.
If you're trading up in the top 3, you better be moving up for a quarterback. Unless you've got a weird circumstance where you've got 2 top 3 picks, you know, the way the Texans did, right? Or like you've got enough draft capital like they do.
You still have really good talent in those 2 guys.
Sure, but that's not trade up to the top 3 level talent.
No, I know. And I'm saying if you're those teams, you just kind of
If they're-
take what you got.
We can also look at this and say, well, this is also an Astrid move, right? Also, for a team that wants to move up. If there's a group behind them, the Raiders being a part of that, right? Dallas being in that conversation, too. If you feel how you feel about Ashton Genty, this is where I think the conversation with him starts more than almost anybody, specifically a team like Jacksonville that might want to move up. Vegas. I mean, there's a case for it to be a running back at this point.
I see what you mean,
him.
but I don't see it.
That's fair.
So
Well,
late
this
in
is
the
why we're
game.
also having this conversation, though,
Yeah,
too,
I
because
don't see it.
anything can happen on draft night.
I don't think any of these players are worth going up for.
Why do you
Any
even
of them.
put it out there? Like, obviously the teams are telling them this, you know, or representatives of the team.
Me,
Like,
I
why do you
believe
want
it.
that out there?
I think they're fielding calls. I do, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, but like, isn't everyone kind of fielding calls at this point? Like, what requires fielding calls? Is it someone with a tangible offer? Hey, we want to move up to 2. We're willing to offer you this. Or is it, hey, how sold are you on that number 2 pick you got there? Because we know you're not taking a quarterback. Like, that's what I think is more the reality. Like, are they fielding calls? Probably. Like, I don't know. It's like if I text my buddies in my group text, does that mean they're fielding calls from me? I guess.
Yeah.
Or
it's
is it just a
always-
message to check in? Like, I don't know. I'm just so ready for this draft to happen.
2 days.
This is the worst part of it, is the very, 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 very end, when there is no new information except for what we are told is information that might just be crap.
I love it.
At least we got the Titans pretty much. At least that's out there. I know we
Yeah.
believed it already, but at least there's a report.
As someone whose team Cam Ward have been for a very long time, is there pressure into like wanting this to be successful too?
For me?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm okay to admit anything. Like, I've admitted I'm wrong in the past, but yeah, I mean, I ride with somebody in terms
Sure.
of backing what I believe. Absolutely. But
Yeah.
I don't feel pressure. If I'm wrong, I'll admit I'm wrong.
I'm not hoping
You
you to be
know?
wrong, but it's also like it's me wanting James Pierce to be good, or here personally, Dan
Yeah.
Moore to cash in to like
Absolutely.
show his worth. Like
Yeah,
when you
I
vouch,
mean, you have a connection
Yeah.
to those people you've watched for so long.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't something where I just started to watch him.
Yeah,
So yeah, I
no
mean,
doubt.
you want to see those journeys be fulfilled at the end, and for that, it would be being a success
yeah,
in the NFL. Plus, I want the Titans to be good.
right. for
Nobody
sure.
wants to cover a crap team. You know,
Some people do.
Yeah, I guess so. I can't speak
Those
for
people do
everyone.
exist out there.
There's
But
an
yeah,
industry
it's-
for that.
It's definitely like you want that to work.
Yeah.
You want that to work for sure.
100%. Like, and there's also that side of it where you stick your neck out for those
Sure,
type of
absolutely.
situations.
And we do that in this
Want to
business.
see that be the case.
Yeah.
Tomorrow morning on the show, we will be joined by NFL Network draft analyst Daniel Jeremiah at 8:20. We will do a deeper dive into Cam Ward's scouting report and the quarterback class with Rhett Bryan at 9 o'clock. Not only do we have NFL Network draft analyst Daniel Jeremiah, we have Appalachian State's own Daniel Jeremiah tomorrow. So
Oh,
we can work in a Joey
right.
Aguilar question for Daniel
App
Jeremiah.
State guy.
I mean, he at some point will have to start evaluating them.
That's right.
Right, that's
Probably
true.
already has, just as an App State fan.
A little bit closer to it.
6 to 10 tomorrow morning, and you'll be able to hopefully stream us live for all 4 hours on 104.5 The Zone TV. Bert at the zoo interviewing animals
goodness.
about NFL draft topics and calling a snake Nico is something that you need in your life. It's on the 104.5 The Zone YouTube channel. That will not have technical difficulties. That is
No,
up.
it's up.
So we're
Thanks
we're
for bearing
always-
with us.
we're always glad for more Bert content in our lives
Always.
and yours. Draft Eve tomorrow. We'll talk to you then.
Good people, remember at all times, though, your Twitter fingers and your mic is always hot.